I listened to a podcast yesterday. It was talking about the risk factors for ACL injuries, and one of the risk factors is leg asymmetries, and that is, you know, your left leg being stronger than your right leg, or your right leg being stronger than your left leg. And this is one idea or hypothesis that I've had before, is that the reliance on a permanent pivot foot could lead to asymmetries and ultimately could lead to injuries. So I've proposed this question before to some athletic trainers. I actually did have an athletic trainer who, was interested in pursuing this as a line of research, but it was just too hard to try to control all the variables to do, a publishable study. But if you look at a lot of right-handed players, on their layups, they're taught to jump off their left foot. Most, especially if they're single foot jumpers, they predominantly jump off their left foot. And then if they use a permanent pivot foot, then almost all their moves are using their left foot as that pivot foot. And so to me, potentially that could cause extra stress to that leg, and potentially, if not accounted for in other training or strength training, could lead to an imbalance where there's a preference, strength preference, for the left foot compared to the right foot because of all those extra jumps and all that extra pushing from using that foot as a pivot foot. So again, nothing, that I have any research to back up. It's just a suggestion or hypothesis that I've had for a few years. I do know a few athletic trainers who, considered the idea and thought that it actually had merit to look into as a study. But trying to control the variables in terms of, looking at a cohort of a population that was a, permanent pivot foot versus a, using both feet as their pivot foot, or an inside pivot foot type player, or, trying to distinguish left foot jumpers from right foot jumpers, or, single leg left foot jumpers from 2 foot jumpers. It'd be difficult to try to, eliminate and control for all those variables. So it's a hard study to accomplish, but it is something to think about, and it is one of the reasons why I prefer to teach both feet as a pivot foot, so players are able to use both feet. I understand that even using both feet, they're going to use their, right-handers will likely use their left foot, upwards of 75 to 90% of the time, even if they do use both feet as pivot feet, just because of the comfort level and the way the moves are taught and so forth. And then also, I like to teach players to be able to jump off both feet, both for, right hand layups and left hand layups, to be able to jump off right and left foot equally, but still know that, some players are still going to prefer and use their left foot more. But my hope is that if we can train both feet equally, even though we know in games, the left foot will probably be used more, there's a little bit more balance to the training, and maybe less of the asymmetry between the legs, and consequently less of a potential for injury. Outside of that, if there is a left foot dominant player, from jumping a permanent pivot foot, it's likely something that a coach may want to look at in terms of doing extra work or some strength training to try to create that balance and make sure that the right leg is getting some training stimulus, whether that's in warm-up exercises, or whether that's strength training or balance exercises outside of a normal practice, but some type of training stimulus to try to equate with the training stimulus that the left foot or the left leg is getting through the repetitive jumps on layups and the repetitive use as the pivot foot.